Democrats attack Attorney General Bill Barr. Ilhan Omar blames Venezuela's crisis on America. And hey, I saw Avengers Endgame and I have thoughts. I'm Ben Shapiro. This is The Ben Shapiro Show. Oh yeah, there are going to be spoilers. So I'm just going to warn you, late in the show when we do Avengers Endgame, if you haven't seen the movie yet, I would recommend that you either fast forward or that you pause it. We'll get to all of that in just a second. First, let me tell you about Legacy Box. So if you want to give the greatest gift that you can give, I really believe this to anybody, it's the gift of their memories, preserving those memories. Because as we get older, we have those memories stacked up in our garage or they're stacked up in our phone. We have a bunch of crap that we haven't done anything with, and it's moldering out there. It's falling apart. We've got all of the photos from our grandparents and from our parents. What are you going to do with all that stuff? Well, how about changing it from analog formats to digitizing it? There are lots of reasons to want to do this. You can save your family films, prevent photos from degrading or being lost forever. You're unable to play your recordings because you don't have a VCR anymore? Well, why don't you just translate that over to a digital format? You can ensure your family history is preserved forever. Send your Legacy Box filled with old home movies and pictures. They will do the rest over at Legacy Box. They'll professionally digitize your moments onto a thumb drive, digital download, or DVD. I've used it for my family. You should too. It's really fantastic. They have easy-to-follow instructions, safety barcodes included for every item, receive all your original recorded moments back, along with perfectly preserved digital copies, get personalized updates at every step, and receive up to 12 personalized email updates along the way. Legacy Box is the world's largest, most trusted digitizer of home movies and photos. All the work is done by hand right here in the United States. There's never been a better time to digitally preserve your memories, so go visit legacybox.com today to get started. Plus, for a limited time, they're offering my listeners an exclusive discount. Go to legacybox.com/Ben and get 40% off your first order. That's legacybox.com/Ben. Save 40% today. Get started preserving your past. Legacybox.com/Ben. Important gift, as well as just a really meaningful one. Legacybox.com/Ben. You can save 40% today. Okay, so we begin with the Democrats who are very, very angry at Attorney General William Barr. Today, the big story is that William Barr has said that he would not testify before a House panel. The Justice Department, this is according to Politico, the Justice Department issued a double-barreled rebuff to Democrats on Wednesday, informing the House Judiciary Committee that Attorney General William Barr would not show up for his scheduled testimony before the panel, and that the department would not comply with the subpoena for Special Counsel Robert Mueller's full report. The administration has the nerve to dictate our procedures. It's simply part of the administration's complete stonewalling of Congress, period. Okay, so a couple of things. It's not a complete stonewalling of Congress to turn over Mueller's entire report to Congress. That is not a stonewalling of Congress. And by the way, certain Congress people have seen the unredacted material. So the notion that Congress has not seen the unredacted material, even that is not particularly true. Also, it is not the job of the Justice Department to be the investigators on behalf of Congress. There is a separation of powers in the Constitution, a separation of powers, which means Congress has investigative power and they can subpoena things. And the Justice Department, which works for the executive branch, is not mandated to turn over those things. This is why the president can declare executive privilege. It's why the Justice Department can point out that it does not have to, under regulations, turn over underlying materials and investigations. Can you imagine if the power of Congress extended to the ability to go to the DOJ and then ask for all underlying confidential grand jury testimony? I mean, if it extended to that, you know that Congress would immediately leak that stuff into the public sphere. You know that Congress would immediately take that stuff and blow it up. The reason that William Barr is not turning over the unredacted materials in the grand jury testimony is, number one, some of that stuff is classified. And number two, it is not the job of Congress to be able to grab grand jury testimony that is being attained and obtained by the Justice Department under threat of criminal prosecution. That's not Congress's power. Congress has its own investigative power. They've got subpoena power. They've got the ability to hold people in contempt, but they do not have law enforcement power. There is a difference between Congress and the law enforcement arm of the government, which is the executive branch. I think Bill Barr is completely right to say, I'm not turning over unverified grand jury gossip that was not included in the final Mueller report to you. That is well within his purview. The Thursday hearing, which was set to examine Barr's handling of the Mueller report, would have included an extra hour to allow committee lawyers to question the Attorney General. The Justice Department had argued it would be inappropriate for staffers to question a cabinet member, and as a result, Barr backed out. This, of course, is indeed the prerogative of the executive branch. They don't have to agree to any of the conditions that Congress sets on them, and then if it ends up in court, it ends up in court. If Congress chooses to hold somebody in contempt or impeach, they can hold somebody in contempt or impeach. There is a solution to this. If they want to impeach Barr, they can go for it. And they are talking about impeaching Barr, but again, they're doing so not even on the basis that he is now being obstructive. They're doing so on the basis that he's been obstructive in the past. which is weird because the conversation has gone something like this. Democrats to Barr. Why are you obstructing this investigation? Where is the Mueller report? Barr, it's in front of you, on the table, printed out, and in public view for everyone to see. Democrats, obstruction though. That's how this conversation has gone. It's a cover-up. This is wild stuff. So Democrats, of course, are trying to play politics with a Mueller report that did not give them what they wanted, namely a clear cause of action for impeachment or certainly a criminal prosecution of the president of the United States. Jerry Nadler, who is deeply dishonest about all this stuff, the representative from New York, who once used to believe that the executive branch didn't have the necessity to turn over these sorts of reports during the Clinton era. He says, given his lack of candor in describing the work of the special counsel, our members were right to insist that staff counsel be permitted to question the attorney general. I understand why he wants to avoid that kind of scrutiny, Nadler added. He is terrified of having to face a skilled attorney. Well, last I checked, these Congress people are supposed to be skilled attorneys. I mean, I'm glad they're acknowledging that they're idiots now, but it is not William Barr's decision to have to sit. He doesn't have to sit in front of a bunch of lawyers who are unelected bureaucrats to grill him so they can catch him in some sort of perjury trap. Justice Department spokeswoman Carrie Kupek countered that Nadler had established, quote, unprecedented and unnecessary conditions for the hearing, adding, quote, Congress and the executive branch are co-equal branches of government. Each have a constitutional obligation to respect and accommodate one another's legitimate interests. In a separate letter, Assistant Attorney General Stephen Boyd told Nadler that his subpoena for the full unredacted Mueller report, plus the underlying evidence and grand jury information, was not legitimate oversight. The department has long resisted congressional attempts to rummage through its files, Boyd wrote. He added that Nadler had issued the subpoena knowing the department could not lawfully provide the unredacted report, that the committee lacks any legislative purpose for seeking the complete investigative files, and that processing a request would impose a significant burden on the department. Nadler says he'll hold Barr in contempt of Congress if the department doesn't turn over the unredacted Mueller report and all of the underlying evidence in the next day or two. For notes on how effective it is to hold an attorney general in contempt, he should turn to his Republican colleagues who once held Eric Holder in contempt and then did nothing about it. And Eric Holder is now sitting out there proclaiming from his perch on moral high how terrible William Barr is. The chairman also said he could issue a subpoena to compel Barr's attendance at a future hearing. The committee had teed up the clash earlier on Wednesday after a tense party line vote on establishing the ground rules. Under the motion adopted by the Democrats on the committee, the attorneys for the Democratic and Republican sides of the panel would have had an hour equally divided to question Barr, who had threatened to back out of the hearing if that was the arrangement. Democrats said that despite DOJ claims, there is ample precedent to use staff attorneys. Republicans have jumped to Barr's defense, asserting it would be disrespectful to have anyone but lawmakers question the attorney general. Now, again, I don't see the purpose. Why, if I'm Barr, I don't do that. Because then I'm basically testifying in the open without the help of my own legal counsel in danger of perjury from lawyers whose job it is to create what we call perjury traps. Now, there are people out there who say, there's no such thing as a perjury trap, just tell the truth. Well, sometimes you can tell a version of the truth and people will not believe you and they will still prosecute you for perjury. Right? This is, for example, when Bill Clinton said he didn't know what the meaning of is. That is a very lawyerly answer, for example. Well, Barr could give a lawyerly answer and still be accused of lying. In fact, there are members of Democratic Congress who have suggested that he's lying right now, and he has not yet lied. It's pretty amazing. Well, the Democrats on the House Judiciary Committee are very upset about this, so upset that they brought a bucket of fried chicken to the House Judiciary Committee. It's pretty incredible. So Steve Cohen, who's another one of the geniuses in the Democratic House, he showed up to the hearing with a ceramic chicken and a bucket of fried chicken, which he proceeded to chomp and then talk about how Barr was a chicken. You guys you get it? Like he's a chicken? Like he's scared? Basically, Steve Cohen is Needles from Back to the Future 2. Pretty. What are you, Chicken McFly? Steve Cohen being a full-fledged silly person.
Chicken Barr should have shown up today and answered questions. He was afraid of Barry Burke. He was afraid of Norm Eisen. An attorney general who is picked for his legal acumen and his abilities would not be fearful of any other attorneys questioning him for 30 minutes. This man was picked to be Roy Cohn and to be Donald Trump's fixer. The Black Sox look clean compared to this team. It's a sad day in America.
A sad day in America. Here's my ceramic chicken, guys. Take me seriously. Chicken Barr. By the way, I'm really considering opening now, in discussion with my producers, opening a restaurant called Chicken Barr. It sounds delicious. There'd be many types of chicken. There'd be teriyaki chicken. There'd be fried chicken. There'd be chicken a la king, like all sorts of chicken. It sounds great. And William Barr's picture would grace the entrance because Chicken Bar. Yeah, I'm taking you super seriously when you say it's a sad day in America as you wield a ceramic chicken at me. Steve Cohen. Don't worry, guys. This is super serious stuff. Democrats are taking this really seriously. They've uncovered wrongdoing, so much wrongdoing that the entire report is sitting on a desk in front of them. Like right there. Then James Comey sounds off, so that's always exciting. James Comey, who has spent the last year and a half, couple of years, wandering the woods, staring at the sights of nature. Sort of like Thanos after the snap fingers. He's just become a farmer. He's just out there staring at the trees and being all weird. Well, now James Comey is back to write an op-ed for the New York Times in which he attacks all of his former colleagues as deeply corrupt. He says, people have been asking me hard questions. People are not you, dude. Like, you standing in the mirror asking yourself hard questions, James Comey, those aren't people. That's just you. It's okay. He says, what happened to the leaders in the Trump administration, especially the Attorney General Bill Barr, who I have said was due the benefit of the doubt? How could Mr. Barr, a bright and accomplished lawyer, start channeling the president in using words like no collusion and FBI spying? Well, first of all, he used the words no collusion because the report found no collusion, and FBI spying because spying means surveillance, and surveillance was taking place, so there's that. How could he downplay acts of obstruction of justice as products of the president's being frustrated and angry, something he would never say to justify the thousands of crimes prosecuted every day that are the product of frustration and anger? Well, actually, James Comey, since you were incompetent at your job, you tried to rewrite the classification statutes to include intent as an element of the crime. You said Hillary Clinton didn't intend to expose classified material to public scrutiny, and therefore she was not guilty of the crime. Intent was not an element of the crime. You just rewrote the law to include it. You know where intent is an element of the crime? Obstruction of justice. So when William Barr goes to the president's state of mind, that's because intent is an element of the crime. If James Comey had two brain cells to rub together, it would help. We'll get to more of James Comey on this in just a second, but first, admit it, you think cybercrime is something that happens to other people. You might think that no one wants your data, or that hackers can't grab your passwords or credit card details. You would be wrong. Stealing data from unsuspecting people on public Wi-Fi, it's one of the simplest and cheapest ways for hackers to make money. When you leave your internet connection unencrypted, you may as well be writing your passwords and credit card numbers on a giant billboard for the rest of the world to see, which is why I decided to take action. To protect myself from cybercriminals, I use ExpressVPN. ExpressVPN secures and anonymizes your internet browsing by encrypting your data and hiding your public IP address. ExpressVPN has easy-to-use apps that run seamlessly in the background of your computer, phone, and tablet. Turning on ExpressVPN protection, that only takes one click. Using ExpressVPN, I can safely surf on public Wi-Fi without being snooped on or having my personal data stolen. For less than $7 a month, you can get the same ExpressVPN protection that I have. ExpressVPN is rated the #1 VPN service by TechRadar. It comes with a 30-day money-back guarantee. Protect your online activity today. Find out how you can get 3 months for free at expressvpn.com/Ben. That's expressvpn.com/Ben for 3 months free with a 1-year package. Visit expressvpn.com/Ben to learn more. Go check them out right now. Okay, so James Comey, writing in the pages of the prestigious New York Times, he says, how could William Barr write and say things about the report by Robert Mueller, the special counsel, that were apparently so misleading they prompted written protest from the special counsel himself? Note, as we mentioned yesterday on the show, the letter did not actually accuse William Barr of misstating the conclusions of the Mueller report. Basically, what Mueller wanted is for Barr to include all of the color commentary provided by Tom Musburger or whatever. He wanted all the color commentary that was going to show how mean and cruel and nasty Trump was without being criminal. And Barr kept saying, guys, that's not my job. I'm not the nasty, mean, cruel police. I'm the police. It's my job to prosecute crimes. And if no crime takes place, not my job to talk about my feelings about all of that. Nonetheless, James Comey, a guy who actually did go out and talk about all of the bad things Hillary Clinton had done and then exonerate her. Now he's ripping on Barr. He says, how could Barr go before the Senate Judiciary Committee on Wednesday and downplay President Trump's attempts to fire Mr. Mueller before he completed his work? Well, he didn't downplay that. The one thing that he certainly did do was mention that this was not a crime, which is his job. He says, what happened to these people? I don't know for sure, said James Comey. People are complicated, so the answer is most likely complicated. Okay, thanks. Thanks, psychologist. Dr. Comey, we really appreciate your take on people are complicated. How could people be like this? I don't know. People are complicated. But I have some idea from 4 months of working close to Mr. Trump and many more months of watching him shape others. Amoral leaders have a way of revealing the character of those around them. Sometimes what they reveal is inspiring. For example, James Mattis resigned over a principle, a concept so alien to Mr. Trump it took days for the president to realize what had happened. You know who didn't resign over principle, as I recall? A tall gentleman, 6'9", kind of weird, gawky, gangly. Tried to hide in the curtains one time when Trump was talking to him. Yeah, didn't quit. Was fired. I see his name rhymes with Shmames Momi. I remember that guy. You remember that guy? I remember that guy. He says that William Barr and Rod Rosenstein, they have gone along with President Trump because President Trump just pressures people and they fall prey to the pressure. He tried it with me. I didn't go along with it, but these people will. These people will. You can't say this out loud, but in a time of emergency with the nation led by a deeply unethical person, this will be your contribution, your personal sacrifice for America. You're smarter than Donald Trump. You're playing a long game for your country. You can pull it off where lesser leaders have failed and gotten fired by tweet. Of course, to stay, you must be seen as on his team, so you promise further compromises. Compromise. Okay, remember, James Comey did not quit. He was fired. Okay, so now we get to what the Democrats have actually been accusing Barr of. And this is bewildering, because what exactly are they accusing Barr of doing? They're mad at him that he won't talk with the lawyers. You know, maybe Barr should show up and talk with the lawyers just to show them that he can run circles around them, but there's no necessity for him to put his life in danger, the possibility of being imprisoned for a perjury trap set by Democrats, for example, or an attempt to subpoena him in violation of, for example, executive privilege. There are a lot of legal issues that arise whenever the Attorney General testifies before Congress, which is why they do have a negotiation about setting the ground rules in the first place. But what exactly is Barr accused of doing? No one knows. He issued a 4-page letter. It accurately summarized the findings of the Mueller report. Even Mueller acknowledged that it accurately summarized the findings of the Mueller report. So here was William Barr testifying yesterday in front of the Senate Judiciary Committee, suggesting correctly that focusing on his 4-page synopsis when the entire report is available is really, really weird.
I understood you to say, and these are my words, not yours, the first concern that Mr. Mueller had, he felt like your letter wasn't nuanced enough.
Correct.
Okay. That problem's been solved, has it not?
Well, it was sort of solved by putting out the whole report.
Exactly.
Which was that's why I think this whole thing is sort of mind-bendingly bizarre, because I made clear from the beginning that I was putting out the report, as much of the report as I could.
Okay, so this, of course, is true. He put out as much of the report as he could. So why are they focusing on a synopsis that is obviated by the actual report? This is like William Barr writes a summary of a book. The book is publicly available, and you're mad at his summary even though you could just buy the book. Barr also mentioned, hey, guys, like the Mueller team didn't recommend charges. I hate to break it to you, but the Mueller team had the ability to recommend charges to me, and they did not do so. They declined to do so. Here's Barr reminding Democrats of this fact.
Has the Mueller team changed its mind on its conclusions?
Its conclusions as to what?
As to collusion, conspiracy, conspiracy.
Not that I'm aware of.
So the decision not to bring an indictment against the president for collusion, conspiracy with Russia has not changed.
No, it hasn't.
And the conclusion not to bring an indictment against the president for obstruction of justice has not changed.
No.
Okay, so that has not changed. None of that has changed. And then people on the left were saying, well, maybe the reason that Mueller didn't prosecute is because of the Office of Legal Counsel opinion that suggested that the president could not be prosecuted for obstruction of justice. And Barr said, nope, I talked to Mueller. Remember, Barr's under oath here. He said, I talked to Mueller 3 separate times. And Mueller said he didn't decline to prosecute because of the OLC opinion. He declined to prosecute because the evidence was not clear one way or the other.
Special Counsel Mueller stated 3 times to us in that meeting in response to our questioning that he emphatically was not saying that but for the OLC opinion, he would have found obstruction. He said that in the future, the facts of a case against the president might be such that a special counsel would recommend abandoning the OLC opinion, but this is not such a case. We did not understand exactly why the special counsel was not reaching a decision. And when we pressed him on it, he said that his team was still formulating the explanation.
Okay, so in other words, Mueller explicitly said to Barr, there's an OLC opinion. If we thought the fact pattern overcame the OLC opinion, we would just recommend the overthrowing of the OLC opinion. We don't think that happened here. So Barr asked Mueller, so why don't you just recommend a charge or not recommend a charge? And Mueller demurred. He said, oh, we're coming up with an explanation. The real explanation is that Mueller knew he didn't have enough to charge here. He didn't want to exonerate President Trump. So instead, he wanted to dump out into public life all of the bad stuff about Trump, while sort of washing his hands of the whole thing. As I said yesterday, Mueller did not have the intestinal fortitude to simply pull the trigger on an obstruction of justice charge, nor did he have the legal backing. So instead, he took what I think is a pretty cheap way out by dumping all of the material in public and then suggesting, well, not up to me, up to William Barr. Kick it over there, even though it is his really responsibility to give a determination as to whether he thinks this thing is prosecutable or not. And then Barr points out, by the way, I didn't even exonerate Trump. I just said we didn't have enough material to prosecute, but I'm not exonerating the guy on all of the stuff that he did with regard to pressuring his underlings on the Mueller report.
You, in effect, exonerated or cleared the president.
No, I didn't exonerate. I said that we did not believe that there was sufficient evidence to establish an obstruction offense, which is the job of the Justice Department. And the job of the Justice Department is now over. That determines whether or not there's a crime. The report is now in the hands of the American people. Everyone can decide for themselves. There's an election in 18 months. That's a very democratic process. But we're out of it. And we have to stop using the criminal justice process as a political weapon.
I love William Barr having to educate sitting senators in how law works. It is not my job to come up with stuff that's mean or bad. It's my job to determine whether the law has been broken. All the bad stuff is out there. You want to vote against him, vote against him. This is correct. William Barr is getting a lot of flack for suggesting that Mueller's letter to him was snitty. It is, in fact, a snitty letter, as I mentioned yesterday. It was Mueller not protesting that Barr had been dishonest in his letter, but protesting that Barr hadn't sufficiently captured his mood when he wrote the Mueller report. So Barr is correct in this characterization.
This letter was an extraordinary act. A career prosecutor rebuking the Attorney General of the United States, memorializing in writing.
I don't consider Bob at this stage a career prosecutor. He's had a career as a prosecutor.
Well, he's a very eminent prosecutor.
He was the head of the FBI for 12 years.
I know of no other instance of...
But he was also a political appointee, and he was a political appointee with me at the Department of Justice. The letter's a bit snitty, and I think it was probably written by one of his staff people.
Okay, pretty hilarious. So, Barr is correct about all of this. Obviously, he knows Mueller. He had conversations with Mueller, and so he feels like Mueller's people were probably ticked at Mueller that Barr's letter came out, and that's probably why this whole thing happened. Now, in a second, we're going to get to the Democrat attempts to take down Barr directly. Suffice it to say, they fail because they don't understand basic law and because this whole thing is a railroading of the highest order. We'll also get to the situation over in Venezuela where Ilhan Omar has some words. We'll get to all that in just 1 second. First, Mother's Day is coming up. There's absolutely nothing most of us wouldn't do to make sure the special moms in our life are happy. This is where Sherry's Berries comes in. Sherry's Berries has special Mother's Day berries designed just for mom. They are topped with chocolate chips, pink shimmer sugar, swizzles. You choose your delivery date to ensure mom gets your gift of Sherry's Berries exactly when you want her to, and your satisfaction is always guaranteed. Let me explain something. Sherry's Berries, they're chocolates, they're chocolate tasting substances. They're just spectacular. Okay, so they have a bunch of kosher products. I have personally tasted Sherry's Berries. They are so good that after I had some, I then proceeded to spend all of our money on Sherry's Berries. I mean, like boxes of Sherry's Berries products. So good. Like the best sweets you will have ever had. Incredible, incredible. Worth the calories, worth the money, worth all of it. Do not wait until the last minute on this one. Visit berries.com today to order freshly dipped strawberries starting at $19.99 for the moms in your life. To make mom really happy, you can double the berries for just $10 more. Mother's Day is Sunday, May 12th. So visit berries.com. That is BERRIES.com. Click on the microphone in the upper right corner. Enter my code BENSHOW. That's berries.com. Click the microphone. Code BENSHOW. Sherry's Berries. I promise you, she won't be disappointed in you. You may have disappointed her your entire life. You may just be a ne'er-do-well. But I promise you want to make your mom happy? There's only one way to do that properly. That is berries.com. Go to Sherry's Berries and get yourself some Sherry's Berries for your mom. She will appreciate it, and she'll probably think that you're a better child also. Enter my code BENSHOW at checkout when you click the microphone for that special deal. Okay, so Democrats have decided that Barr is nonetheless, despite the fact that Barr has not actually violated the law, that he is not obstructing anything, they have decided that he is obstructing something, and that secretly, deep down in the cockles of his heart, Mueller was ready to prosecute Trump, and Mueller just decided not to prosecute Trump because, what, William Barr waved a magic wand? He said the magic words, and then Mueller turned into a pumpkin? Or what? The funniest thing here was Democrats trying to push Barr to say that Donald Trump should be prosecuted for non-criminal behavior. So the report, which I have read the entirety of, summarized twice on the show, the report does not include evidence of criminal conduct by the President of the United States, at least criminally prosecutable conduct by the President of the United States. It includes a lot of bad behavior, a lot of immoral behavior, a lot of behavior that is not appropriate for the President of the United States to engage in. That is not criminal. as William Barr, the Attorney General, whose job it is to prosecute criminal violations, told Dianne Feinstein, who certainly knows better, the senator from California.
You still have a situation where a president essentially tries to change the lawyer's account in order to prevent further criticism of himself.
Well, that's not a crime.
So you can, in this situation, instruct someone to lie?
No, it has to be, well, to be obstruction of justice, the lie has to be tied to impairing the evidence in a particular proceeding.
Okay, that is called the law. His job is to enforce the law. Dianne Feinstein's job is to yell at him for enforcing the law. Kamala Harris tried the same tactic. This was pretty amazing. So Kamala Harris is now proclaiming that Robert Mueller did a bad job. So we were told for years that Robert Mueller did a great job. I mean, they were buying votive candles. They had shirts with his face on it. Chelsea Handler said she wanted to sleep with Robert Mueller. Like, the left was, Robert Mueller was going to save them all. And then Robert Mueller didn't save them. He looked down at them and said, no. And Senator Kamala Harris got very, very angry at this. And so her suggestion is that Robert Mueller, in fact, did a very bad job, and that William Barr, the Attorney General, should have gone around Mueller, looked at all the underlying evidence, and then prosecuted President Trump based on evidence not synopsized, not summarized by Robert Mueller. Okay, Kamala Harris was the Attorney General of California. I promise you, if one of her lower-level prosecutors came to her and said, Attorney General, I've got this case. I'm not going to tell you whether you should prosecute it or not. Here's the evidence. You think that Kamala Harris is going to read the synopsis and say, you know what, this doesn't look like it rises to the level of a crime for me? Or is she going to go back through the hundreds of thousands of pages of grand jury testimony, the $25 million already spent on the investigation? She's going to go around that and come to her own magical determination, ignoring Mueller. So the Democrats kept saying that Barr is going to ignore Mueller. Then Barr doesn't ignore Mueller, and they're mad at him. Here's Senator Kamala Harris being deeply disingenuous.
Special counsel's investigation produced a great deal of evidence. I'm led to believe it included witnesses' notes and emails, witnesses' congressional testimony, witnesses' interviews, which were summarized in the FBI 302 forms, former FBI Director Comey's memos, and the president's public statements. In reaching your conclusion, did you personally review all of the underlying evidence?
No, we accepted the statements in the report as the factual record. We did not go underneath it to see whether or not they were accurate. We accepted it as accurate.
So, in other words, Kamala Harris, like, why did you trust Mueller? So after years of, you must trust Mueller, now it's, why did you trust him? What, you weren't going to look at it yourself? Why not? And I love Cory Booker in the background there, kind of smirking along. And Cory, let me just remind you, you're running for president against Kamala Harris, and she's drinking your milkshake right now. Here's Kamala Harris afterwards saying Barr should resign. Based on what? Based on nothing.
He made a decision and didn't review the evidence. No prosecutor worth her salt would make a decision about whether the President of the United States was involved in an obstruction of justice without reviewing the evidence. This Attorney General lacks all credibility and has, I think, compromised the American public's ability to believe that he is a purveyor of justice.
Oh, is that what happened here? I remember when Kamala Harris was fighting mad at Attorney General Loretta Lynch for not ignoring the recommendation of James Comey and looking at the underlying evidence to bring a prosecution against Hillary Clinton. I remember when Kamala Harris and the Democrats were fighting mad. Oh, wait, no, that never happened because it's a bunch of bullcrap that she's spewing right there. It's just nonsense. Okay, and then you've got Richard Blumenthal, the senator from Delaware, who lied for a very, very long time about his involvement in the Vietnam War, calling Barr a liar and saying that Barr should resign. So he has got a lot of credibility to stand right here.
I think that Attorney General William Barr ought to recognize that he has an obligation to resign here. I have called at the very least for him to recuse himself from those 12 to 14 ongoing investigations into the President of the United States in other jurisdictions. He declined. In fact, he ducked the question entirely as to whether he has had any conversations with the White House about them, said he couldn't recall, a response that is very difficult to believe. So I think he should resign.
Okay, so he should resign. By the way, he's the senator from Connecticut, not Delaware. And then Mazie Hirono, who's the worst of all. So she says, you're a liar. This is before she asked him a question, by the way. She didn't ask him a question and then accuse him of lying to her. She just said, you're a liar and a mean man, and I hate you, and I don't like your hair, and you're ugly, and you have bad glasses, and you smell. Senator Mazie Hirono from the great state of Hawaii. Well done, Hawaii.
Now, the American people know that you are no different from Rudy Giuliani or Kellyanne Conway or any of the other people who sacrificed their once decent reputation for the grifter and liar who sits in the Oval Office. You once turned down a job offer from Donald Trump to represent him as his private attorney. At your confirmation hearing, you told Senator Feinstein that, quote, the job of Attorney General is not the same as representing, end quote, the president. So you know the difference, but you've chosen to be the president's lawyer and side with him over the interests of the American people.
Okay, so well done, Mazie Hirono. I mean, that's some hard-hitting questioning right there. Ted Cruz, senator from Texas, was a guest on our program yesterday, sitting through all of this nonsense. Senator Cruz has a rough job. He actually has to sit in these committees while these Democrats say this stuff and then be polite to them. That's a very difficult job, and the man does have a lot of forbearance. But you would have to be the Zodiac Killer, obviously. So Senator Ted Cruz, he just rips on the Democrats, and you can see William Barr trying not to laugh as Senator Cruz does so.
The principal attack that Democratic senators have marshaled upon you, it's an attack that I want people to understand just how revealing it is. If this is their whole argument, they ain't got nothing. So their entire argument is, General Barr, you suppressed the 19 pages that are entirely public, that we have, that we can read, that they know every word of it. And their complaint is it was delayed a few weeks. If that is their argument, I have to say that is an exceptionally weak argument.
Even Barr can't hold himself back at this point. The best reaction in all of this, by the way, as always, belongs to Chris Matthews over at MSNBC. Got my morning, got me on the show. Maybe watching a little pornography last night. And I have a few metaphors for what happened to William Barr last night. I was watching it was weird. Pizza guy showed up, knocked the door. Lady answers the door. She says, I want a pizza. He says, here's your pizza. And then things get all weird. Strange. I watched that last night. It made me think of the Mueller report. And made me think of William Barr. I don't know why. Because that's just how things go in this crazy head of mine. Go, Chris Matthews, go.
Once he's testified before Mr. Mueller's special counsel investigation, how can he now say, I won't make the same testimony in public claiming executive privilege? I think it is sort of like virginity kind of thing. Once you start talking about a matter in your jurisdiction, and then you say, oh, I'm not doing it anymore. You can't do it once you've started. I understand that's how executive privilege works. Once you've given it up, you can't grab it back.
I'm not going to go with you on that metaphor, Chris.
I'm sorry about that metaphor I used before. I've been admonished already about it, so I really shouldn't have used it.
I started talking about virginity. That was really awkward. Kamala, this is the only time I've ever liked Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris is trying not to burst out laughing at Chris Matthews. And William Barr is like, he didn't assert executive privilege, and he wants to assert executive privilege like a lady trying to hide her virginity. I mean, what are they going to do? Carry her out? Carry around the town? Try to show everybody she's a virgin? Like, what is it, like biblical law? Kathleen didn't do that. I don't know about Kathleen. I don't know about me. I don't know anything. Just come over here, come out of the show, getting this chair swivel around all weird like. Chris Matthews, MSNBC report. Michael Isikoff, what do you say? I love our media. They're just great at their jobs. All right. In a second, we're going to get to the latest developments from Venezuela. Suffice it to say, things are not great. But first, it can be a little frustrating, especially if you're in a hurry or running late, to find yourself at a railway crossing waiting for a train. Right? You're sitting there and nothing's happening, and you're thinking, okay, I could probably make it around these little barriers here. Well, if the signals are going and the train is not even there yet, you might feel a little tempted to try to gun it and get across the tracks. Don't do this, ever. This is a stupid, stupid idea. Trains are often going a lot faster than you expect them to be going, and they cannot stop. It's not like they can hit the brakes or blast the horn at you or something, and then stop the train. That's not how it works. Even if the engineer hits the brakes right away, it can take a train over a mile to stop. By that time, what used to be your car is just a crushed hunk of metal, and what used to be you is a crushed hunk of human flesh. It's good times. The point is, you don't know how quickly the train is going to arrive, and the train can't stop even if it sees you, and sometimes you can't see the train properly, and it can't see you properly, and even if it can, it's going to run you over. The result? Disaster. So, if the signals are on, assume the train is on its way. Please do not be a stupido, and you just need to remember, you should stop, because the train cannot. Okay, so, in a second, we are going to get to the situation in Venezuela, and our moral light in the U.S. Congress is speaking out about Venezuela. We'll get to that in just a second. First, you have to go over to dailywire.com. For $9.99 a month, you can get a subscription to dailywire.com. When you do, you get the rest of this show live. You get the rest of Andrew Klavan's show live. You get the rest of Michael Knowles' show live. You get the rest of Matt Walsh's show live. You get 2 additional hours of me every single afternoon. And we have great guests. Like yesterday, we had on Arthur Brooks from the American Enterprise Institute and Senator Ted Cruz. Also, the show is basically like an all-day show at this point because I do this show in the morning, and then later I come back and do 2 more hours. So I am doing like 24-hour news coverage from this desk right here. The least you could do is subscribe and become part of the club. Also, when you get the annual subscription for $99 a year, you get this, the Leftist Tears Hot or Cold Tumbler. It is magnificent. You will enjoy it. You will live it. You will love it. So go get one of those and make your life better right now. Also, make sure that you give us a follow at YouTube or iTunes and leave us a review. We always appreciate it. We are the largest, fastest growing conservative podcast and radio show in the nation.